Some questions in life are better left unasked, mainly because answers can be much more worse than not knowing. That's why we don't ask Leon what he needed to do to keep his haircut in the army.
Sloppy!
Or Claire why she said that infamous line in Code Veronica.
Alfred! You cross-dressing freak!
The more I hear that insult, the more unnecessary it feels, especially coming from Claire. Of all the characters in the series, Capcom turned one of the most compassionate and morally upright characters into a bigot for no reason.
Why are you doing this? Because I care.
And it feels so wrong, so unnatural. But even if it hurts to see our heroes' dark side, we can't just turn a blind eye to their questionable actions, no matter how many great things they accomplished. With that said, I will try my best to analyze the context of the game and the nature of the scene to find out whether Claire's reply was genuinely transphobic or not. Let's get to it, shall we?
Resident Evil.
Is Claire Redfield transphobic? Well, I'd like to start by saying that Code Veronica is clearly a product of its time, and while I think it's valid to critique the scene from a contemporary perspective, it is also important to acknowledge the intent and context in which it was created. To put the game's story in context, Alfred and Alexia are the main villains of Code Veronica. We are held captive on their island when a mysterious attack causes an outbreak, taking over the whole complex. As we are trying to escape, we run into the Ashworth twins, who blame us for the incident. Thus they appear from time to time to make our life harder. They are part of the aristocratic Ashford family, trying to restore their family's reputation. To illustrate their relationship, we are shown a film of them when they were younger, in which Alfred's mutilating a dragonfly before feeding it to an ant colony. The scene then ends with the siblings looking in each other's eyes, as if they are about to kiss. To everybody's disappointment, this footage got me thinking, first of all, why the hell would anyone record that shit? Second, does it imply an incestuous relationship? Or is it just a reference to royal inbreeding? So yeah, they were codependent. Anyway, we learn that there were no Alexia, it was Alfred cross-dressing as her the whole time. We can only guess what happened to Alexia, but judging by Alfred's behavior, something really tragic. Then Alfred activates the island's self-destructive sequence, and our heroes, Claire and Steve, hijack a plane to fly away from his cursed island. We've arrived to the point where the cross-dressing line happens.
What's happening?
I don't know. The plane just changed direction on its own. It's flying in autopilot mode. I can't switch over to manual control.
My apologies, but I cannot let you escape now.
Alfred! You cross-dressing freak!
The game presents cross-dressing as a disturbing element of Alfred's character that meant to evoke horror rather than a commentary on gender identity. Because of this reason, some people would argue that the line in question is fine, because Alfred is a cross-dresser who happens to be a freak. What they mean, I guess, is that the words cross-dressing and freak are somehow not related. They just happen to be in the same sentence, without any connection. I don't want to be rude, but this logic doesn't really hold up. To illustrate why, just replace cross-dressing with any word related to race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity or disability. Let's be real, out of context, Claire's reply seems borderline transphobic, even though Alfred is not a trans person, while cross-dressing itself doesn't indicate the individual's sexual orientation or gender. The concepts of trans and cross-dresser kinda go hand in hand in most people's minds, partly because of their portrayal in the media. Take for example Psycho. the movie which heavily inspired Code Veronica. Similarly to Alfred Ashford, Norman Bates was not trans. Both of them suffered from the same condition, called dissociative identity disorder. In short, they were cross-dressing because they believed they were another person. The only difference was that Alfred's source of obsession was his sister, not his mother. The problem with this kind of representation is it reinforces the idea that cross-dressers are mentally ill or clinically insane. So just because Alfred isn't explicitly written as a trans person doesn't mean he won't be interpreted as one. I know that Code Veronica was released in a time when the name Concorde meant a magnificent plane, not a colossal failure, when trans visibility was almost non-existent, and the visible trans people were mostly used as a joke. But in today's political climate, it's hard not to say that Alfred's embodiment ticks all the boxes of a modern transphobic rhetoric. And I'm not saying Capcom should stop portraying villains who are part of a minority group. What I'm saying is that the heroes should at least show a bit of empathy instead of disgust when they dissect the backstory of a mentally unwell character.
What? No!
Wait a second. What just happened?
So there never was an Alexia after all.
You mean he thinks he's two people? Okay, that's it. Let's get out of here.
It's so sad that after all the terrible things they've encountered on the island, what seems to be the final straw for Steve is him finding out that Alfred's been disguising as Alexia. And I understand his frustration. You are kinda helpless facing someone who changes dresses faster than you could dump a mag.
Father!
I think what makes the whole Alfred subplot less insulting is the overall tone of the game.
Welcome, Claire!
All Resident Evil games have goofy moments for some extent, especially from 4 onwards, but Code Veronica is simply the most unintentionally funny game in the series, along with the original Resident Evil. Just take a look at any cutscene involving Steve. That dude single-handedly turns all dramatic scenes into top-tier comedy.
Steve, what were you doing here? Who brought you here and where is your family?
Shut up! I don't want to talk about it!
And let's not forget Alfred, who is so obsessed with his sister that he changed his PC's boot screen to their creepy video. Like, dude, imagine watching this shit every single time you boot up your PC. It feels like Capcom subscribed to the idea that there are no bad tactics, just bad targets. So they tried to demonize Alfred as much as possible, which ultimately failed, because he ended up being a cartoon villain. I mean, how could anyone hate someone who laughs like an angel? This game is just so over the top, it can't be taken seriously. However, it all changed with Dark Side Chronicles. Alfred and Steve were toned down, problematic lines were cut, the whole story got darker, and Alfred's big reveal was just sad, in a good way.
A wig. So Alfred was playing 2 roles all by himself.
He couldn't bear the fact that his sister was dead.
But even if Capcom removed the cross-dressing line from one story, they couldn't resist to turn Claire into a sexist character in another.
She just wants to get out of here, Claire, and she needs our help.
Men. You just want to impress her, don't you?
So much for character development. To sum it all up, I wouldn't call Claire a transphobic person purely based on her reaction, but she certainly sounds like one. I know most people don't make a big deal out of it, and I can see why. After all, Alfred is not a freak because he cross-dresses. He's a freak because he's mentally unhinged enough to believe he's Alexia. And also because he kills and tortures people. But it doesn't change the fact that Capcom chose Claire's words poorly, which left a sour taste in my mouth. Even if it wasn't their intent, Alfred is a broken man whose reality shattered when he lost the only person he cared about. What's even more tragic is the moment he finally gets his sister back, he slowly fades away from existence, as if the two were never meant to coexist.
Alexia, you're finally awake. Alexia.
All in all, the answer to the original question is a bit more nuanced than a simple yes or no. See ya.